Welcome to Caldwell, Kansas. It's a little chilly. It's on a Sunday here, so the town is pretty quiet, but there's a little bit of traffic up and down Main Street here. I came through here and did a video, a small town downtown video where Caldwell was my top pick for those lists of towns. It's got this awesome, old historic downtown. And so I thought, I'm going to come back and make a Small Town USA video, and so here I am. We're going to start with learning about this historic place by walking down that Main Street, give you a little closer look at some of the buildings, tell you about all the history, and then we'll explore around the rest of town. Caldwell, Kansas is in Sumner County. Sumner County is located on the southern border of Kansas with Oklahoma, and the town of Caldwell is only about 2 miles from that Oklahoma border. It's known as the Border Queen, as you see on this first sign. Lots of signs like this all around town. Tells you about the history of Caldwell, so that's very cool. It was known as the Border Queen because it was a wild frontier town in the late 19th century, serving as a key stop along the Chisholm Trail, and later played a role in the Oklahoma land rush. It was established in 1871 and named after Senator Alexander Caldwell. The town started as a small trading post, but grew quickly, especially after the Santa Fe Railroad came through in 1879. And by then, Caldwell had transformed into a booming cattle town, attracting cowboys, gamblers, outlaws, making it one of the most lawless settlements of its time. As a cow town, Caldwell was notorious for saloons, brothels, and gunfights. Incredibly, between 1879 and 1885, the town saw 18 city marshals lost to violence. One of the first major incidents occurred in 1879 when 2 cowboys celebrating a payday were shot and killed after a confrontation with Deputy Constable James Wilson and George Flatt. Flatt, who became the first city marshal, was himself killed in an ambush in 1880 after being dismissed from his role by the newly elected mayor, Mike Meager. Meager later died in a shootout himself with outlaws in 1881. The town continued to see bloodshed, including 1882 killing of Marshal George Brown by the Green Brothers at the Red Light Saloon. His successor, Henry Brown, had a hidden past, having ridden with the notorious Billy the Kid. He was initially pretty effective in law enforcement, but he was later involved in a failed bank robbery in 1884, which resulted in his death at the hands of a lynch mob. As the cattle trade moved westward in the mid-1880s, Caldwell transitioned into a quieter agricultural community. However, it saw another burst of activity in 1893 during the Cherokee Outlet Land Rush. Thousands of settlers gathered in town before racing to claim land in northern Oklahoma. Following this time, Caldwell settled into its more current role. It was a railroad junction and a farming town, and the present-day population is just a little bit over 1,000. And as you can see as we walk down the downtown area, there are just dozens of old historic buildings. You can imagine what it might have been like walking down through this area, seeing probably a lot of the same buildings here, and been a really interesting time to be here. The population grew to a little over 2,000 and was there from about 1910 to 1950, and then from that point it went down every census down to its current level of 1,025 today. It's really interesting coming to a town like Caldwell. You know, there's a ton of history that came through here, and they do a great job documenting it. But there's lots of towns that had history, you know, like the Chisholm Trail or other trails, and they just haven't been able to document it as well. You know, we're right here by the railroad tracks. There's like abandoned railroad tracks all around us, and that was so significant, the railroad to these towns. And you know, they had to drive the cattle up right through here, maybe just on the other side of railroad tracks there. I think I read that like the east side of town is where the Chisholm Trail kind of went. It would pass through here, go maybe up to Wichita, or before that on up to maybe like Abilene. And but you can imagine there were like 3 million head of cattle going through this area, and then what it was like back then. It's really interesting, and obviously they here do a great job. There are a ton of historical markers all through town, and you could just walk around the downtown for a couple hours reading all the historical markers. There's businesses downtown, and so they've done a great job of documenting their history. And you wish, you know, more towns did as good of a job as Caldwell. And there's all these historic buildings, and I love the reading about all the history that happened here. And you saw the population has gone down significantly, and you hope that trend is slowing down. There's still businesses downtown. There's still lots to do and lots to see here. So hopefully it's maybe hitting its floor. It's not the most convenient place to get to from like the interstate, but it's not that bad. So I would highly recommend stopping by Caldwell. It's definitely worth a day trip if you're in the area in southern Kansas or northern Oklahoma. Really, really cool place to visit. They tried to hide it back here on the outskirts of town, but I found it. Pretty good. I like green, but yeah, we're gonna give it a 7.